Okay, we are live, day 442. Today, we're going to go through the process of analyzing a deal from the beginning. Meaning, we've been looking at Redfin, and I was looking at properties that were 3 bedroom plus. No max. And I was able to find some properties. Let's see, what was the property I found? 3125 Aspen Ave. And the reason I've been looking at these properties is I was looking for 3 bedrooms, 1.5 bathrooms and above, and at least over 1,200 square feet, because I was looking for opportunities to add to the bedroom count. But before we even go to that process, right, what we've been doing is we've been looking at properties, we've been adding to a comparable sales list to put properties in there and see what they're coming to market and what they're being sold for. Now, when we look for value add opportunities, I'm looking for square footage so that if there is space, then it makes sense where you can convert a property to an additional bedroom count. However, that doesn't always happen. Now, when you are able to find a property that you can add value to, add a bedroom count, and increase your rents that way, because Section 8 pays your rent based on the bedroom count, not the bathroom count. Now, does a second bathroom or a second toilet help the property rent easier? Absolutely. But that's not necessarily true for the rent side. But here's what we're doing. We're going to look at this property today, and we're going to analyze this deal, assuming that we're just going to rent this property out as a 3 bedroom property. All right. Now, let's go through that process. So for this property, this is being listed for 110,450. Now, when I look at the condition of this home, the flooring looks okay. Maybe that needs to be refinished. I can't really tell what's going on over here. I mean, you do some drywall and painting work. I mean, it doesn't look clean for some reason, right? They try to take the photo in such a way that, okay, like bathroom's okay. I don't need to do anything there. Kitchen looks okay. I don't need to do anything there. Okay, so bathrooms are all good. I don't need to do anything there except for putting my high pressure flush toilets. But for some reason, this painting, it just looks off for some reason. And I can't tell what's going on with the roof. So let's go ahead and go to our rehab calculator. Now, what I'm going to do is assume that I don't need to do any renovations except for the 2 toilets. So that's row 132. I don't need to do any other kitchen items. I do think I need a range hood, microwave, and I'll probably try to provide a refrigerator there too. Now, for painting, this property is 1,728 square feet. So I'm going to do 1,728 just so I can have some money there. And for flooring, I'm going to assume that 1,728 divided by 3. So I'm going to have a third of the home that might need some sort of refinishing. Oops, equals 576. That's going to be in row 91, not row 90. And then for my landscaping, I find $5 for some landscaping. And then for my roof, I'm going to, let's see, what am I at now? I don't really trust these roofs. So typically I've had to replace a roof. So let's see, I go 3. So let me save about, just in case there's some roof repairs, I got about $4,500 for the roof, just so I can have that in place. Now, if the renovation is about $31,000, that's great. So for my renovations, I got 30 grand for this house, just in case. Now, for my rent, what can I get for rents on this property? If I go to affordablehousing.com, I go to the owner section, I plug in the address and the bedroom count. I can see that the average rent right here for 3-bedroom homes is $1,037. So I'm going to $1,050. And that's the average rent within a 1-mile radius. Oops, 1-mile radius. 1037. Zip code is 1065. City is 1154, and then county is 1520. All right, great. Now, if I look at this property as a 4-bedroom, I just want to see what's going on here. I can see that the average rent for 25 units within this area is 1343, and that's within a 2.5-mile radius. And the county is 1908. Okay, I'm not going to care about a county number. Now, the next thing I want to do is I'm also going to compare against the HUD FMR, HUD space FMR. Click on the first link, and when I come down here, right, I'm going to click on access to small area FMRs. When you look at access to small area FMRs, you click on FY 2025, and you go to the state and you go to the county. And from this standpoint, you will see the maximum rent by bedroom count by zip code. So this property is in 35221. And if you go to 35221, it's going to be right here. And you'll see that the fair market rent is $1,420 for a 3-bedroom and $1,580 for a 4-bedroom. Okay, now you got these numbers here. This is where most people make their mistakes. They will look at this FMR and they will say, oh, I can get $1,420 for my rents if I rent to Section 8. And here's where you make the mistake. Here's where people overestimate their rents. $1,420 is the SA small area FMR, fair market rent. When you compare that to $1,037, you might, oh, I should rent out to Section 8. That means I can make way more money rent to Section 8. But what they fail to realize is that the $1,420 also includes utilities. So if you don't provide utilities, you have to back out the amount for utility allowances. And you typically look that up on the Jefferson County or whatever county your property is in. Now, this property is in Jefferson County. And next thing I want to show you is why you have to use a lower rent. That's why I'm using $1,050 instead of $1,420. If you go to the Housing Choice Voucher Program Guidebook, okay, Housing Choice Voucher is what they previously was known as Section 8 vouchers. They rebranded from Section 8 to Housing Choice Voucher because of all the negative connotation that was associated with Section 8. And if you go to Section 2.2, where it says comparability, it says that in conducting rent reasonableness, the PHA, or the Public Housing Authority, must determine whether the rent to the owner is a reasonable rent in comparison to rent for other comparable unassisted units. This means that you can't charge more for rent to someone simply because they are a voucher holder. For the obvious reason, right? It's discriminatory, blah, blah, blah. So that is why, obviously, unit type, size, all that stuff matters, finishes, conditions matters, but you're not going to be able to get $1,420 for rent, especially you don't provide utilities, when everybody else around you is being rented for about $1,000 to $1,050. All right, hopefully that makes sense. Don't make that mistake when you are analyzing a deal. Always take into account the rent reasonableness test. Are there areas where they might pay above the SAFMR because you're in a high cost of living area? Absolutely. You can look that up just by Googling your city or your county name, followed by Payment Standards 2024, right? That's a great way to kind of look about it. But remember, payment standards typically include the utilities, all right? So let's go ahead and finish analyzing this deal. So this property, if I go to the payment calculator, the property tax is $46. That seems a little low. I'm gonna put $60 here. That seems a little, obviously double check with your county assessor records before you've closed on the deal. And it says right here that the homeowner insurance is 86. So I'm going to equals 86. And I'm going to multiply that by 1.2. The reason I'm multiplying by 1.2 is because I'm assuming that this $86 number is reliant or assuming that the property is being used for a primary residence, a home where someone's going to live in it. Now, when you use it as an investment property, that's not the case. Insurance companies view that asset as a riskier asset. So they're going to in turn charge you more money for that property. Make sense? So that's why I multiply by 1.2 to add a 20% premium at the minimum. All right, that's just me being conservative. Now, maintenance, war chest. I set aside 10% of the rents every single month for future capital expenditures, meaning I know that the roof is going to get replaced in 10, 15, 20 years. Same thing with my HVAC, same thing with electric panels, plumbing, water heaters, etc. So if you don't set aside money every single month for these future repairs, you would be lying to yourself about how much money you're making. Don't be that person. If you ever come across someone that doesn't set aside money for maintenance or future repairs, they're just lying to you. Don't believe those people. And for you, don't be one of those people, right? Because if you get, let's say you're setting aside $105 every single month for 100 months, and now you get a repair or a roof replacement in 100 months from now for $10,500, then at least you would have set aside that money. If you didn't, then all of a sudden you would have thought you made an extra $100 every single month, when in reality you didn't. You knew that repair was coming down the road. Don't be that person where you underestimated your expenses and you overestimated your profitability. All right. So then you got 10% set aside for property management, and then you got 5% set aside for vacancy. Vacancy is when your home is going to be empty for a certain number of months or days when you're turning over the unit, because, hey, at some point, someone's going to move out of your home. Doesn't matter if they're passing away or they're moving for life circumstances, it's going to happen. Okay. Now, the next thing we want to do is we want to look at my down payment. So in F19, I'm going to set aside 25%. So my down payment is going to be equals to my down payment percentage in F19, 25%, times my asking price in B4, which is 110 grand. So I'm paying a $27,000 down payment on this property. I got 2.5% for closing costs, and I got $30,000 for my renovations. Now, for my financing amount in K6, my financing amount is going to equals to my B4, my asking price, minus my down payment to the seller on E19. So I'm going to be financing $80,000 to $83,000. And today, the interest rates are probably about 7.5%, 7-ish for a debt service coverage ratio loan, which is not an income-based loan, but an asset-based loan. All right. So at 7.5%, what does my number equate to? If I rent this property out, right, I'm going to write down all these scenarios for all of you. If I rent this property out as a 3-bedroom for $1,050, my cash flow per month is going to equal to $45 a month. That's a 0.9% cash and cash return. Oops. $0.9. And I was assuming I bought this property for $110,450. And that's assuming a $31,000 rehab with a 25% down, 7.5% interest rate. That to me is not a deal. Again, this is not investment advice. I'm not soliciting any investments on this call. Just simply showing you all the work that you can do yourself to go through this exercise, adjust the inputs, and figure out whether or not something's a deal. All right. Next thing you want to do is, well, let's say your target return is 10%. Okay. What do I need to buy this property for, assuming everything else stays the same, to make it worth 10%, cash and cash return? So as I lower my asking price to $80,000, watch what happens to the cash and cash return number. It goes to 4.7. If I go to 70 grand, I'm at 6. If I go to 60 grand, I'm at almost 8. If I go to 50 grand, I am at 9.8, so just close to 10%. So does that mean someone's going to set your offer for 50 grand if your rehab is 31 grand, assuming that, and 7.5%? Now you're able to get 9.8% return, assuming you're still renting out as a 3-bedroom for $1,050. But now you're going to cash flow $362 a month. So now you know at least what scenario works, right? Now the next thing you want to do is, well, this is why you want to pay attention to the news. All right. So how the 30-year mortgage interest rate works is they follow the 10-year treasury yield. If you look at the 10-year treasury bond yield, right now it's at 4.399. But if you look at the last year, you can see that it's gone up to a peak of like 4.7, and it's gone as low as 3.6-ish. The 30-year mortgage rate is really driven by the 10-year yield interest rate, so 4.3 in situation, and the spread between the 10-year yield and the 30-year mortgage rate. Historically, it's been about 1.5 to 2%. But we've seen as high as 3% because of all the uncertainty around what was happening with interest rates back then. So that's what drives interest rate. So if you see that rates are being cut, and the spread narrows, right? As it narrows, interest rates go down. Let's say your interest rates drop 1.25. So now instead of 7.5%, you're at 6%. Guess what? Now instead of 50 grand, you might say, hey, 55 grand still works for me. So because interest rates, nothing else happening except the market conditions, right? It dropped 1.5%. Now your willingness to pay is 55 grand, assuming your target return was still 10%, because now you're cash flowing $377, but you're still renting out the property as 3-bedroom, $1,050. I'm gonna do one more scenario with you guys. Let's say I got my property under contract and I got an inspector out there, and now all of a sudden I find out that my water heater needs to get replaced and I need to do additional work. Don't know what it is. Maybe I need to put a water heater for like $2,500. Maybe I need another $5,000 for some termite work and drywall work that I didn't expect, or I open up a wall and I realize I need to redo some plumbing or whatever. So now it goes up by $7,500. What do? You're not scared. You just take the emotions out of the deal and you update your inputs for the project, right? So now at $38,000, your cash and cash return number went back down. So now your willingness to pay again goes back down to 45 grand. There you go. Assuming my interest rate is still 6%, right? So that's why all these factors matter. So now 6%, 25% down. My rehab now is 38,000 instead of 31,000. But now my willingness to pay is 45 grand. But I'm still able to meet my target return of 10%. Again, not investment advice, right? Some people might not care about cash and cash return. Some people might say, hey, if I buy a property for $1 million and I can break even on the cash flow because I can expect to earn 5% appreciation on my property every single year, 5% on $1 million, that's $50,000. Some people don't care because they want to build wealth that way. And that's why everybody's strategy is so different. You got to talk to your own investment professionals. You got to understand what your goals are. And more importantly, you have to understand what your execution risk is. By execution risk, I mean, do you think that person is going to show up on time? That contractor is going to show up on time to do what he or she said they were going to do? Do you think that tenant is not going to trash your home? Do you believe that you're going to pass your Section 8 inspection on the first go? And if not, your holding costs might go up. All these factors matter for you to justify whether or not it's worth the return that you're receiving for the time and energy that you're spending on this. Because the last thing you want to do is take on a bad deal and all of a sudden you never want to do it again. And that's the last thing I would want. So I hope this was helpful for everybody. Just kind of go through the process. If you guys want to copy the spreadsheet, go to affordablehousing.io, go to the Get Deal Analysis tool, plug in your name, your email, your phone number. That's the fastest way for you to get a copy of the spreadsheet. I didn't make these spreadsheets from scratch. I got it from a few other folks. I modified, I tweaked it. The number is going to be different for every market, but that's as fast as for you to get a copy of the spreadsheet. And I hope you guys copy my homework. Seriously, I just look at the same deal I looked at today, right? This is the property that's on the market using the same spreadsheet. And I hope you put it on your own YouTube channel, because when the time comes and someone asks you, hey, why do you think this is a deal? You didn't do this for the views. You did it so that you can feel confident that you know what you're doing if a deal came across the table and slaps you across the face. Or if someone ever asks you, hey, why do you think this is a deal? You can say, hey, I know that this is a deal because I've been looking at properties for the past 442 days. Might that give you some confidence that you know what you're doing? I certainly hope so. Hey, this is so fun. Thank you so much for being with me for 442 days in a row. Stay consistent with me. And thank you all so much for caring about affordable housing. Without people like you guys, I would have never had the home I grew up in. So I appreciate you all so much. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for caring about this. And I hope that this is just another step in the right direction for all of you. All right. I hope you all have an amazing Sunday. Spend some quality time with your family and friends today. I will see you all tomorrow for day 443. Have a good one, everybody.